you can access that on through the course website, and it gives you kind of a guide to work through when you're studying for the final exam. So when you say phonology, that's like 1/4 of the final exam review checklist. So that's a big topic. So maybe why don't we try boiling it down to something more specific to start off with, and I can maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So specifically the trees, I was wondering if we could go over how to draw them.
So like the syllable structure trees.
Yeah.
Okay. So right. Let me load up those notes. That's the easiest way to kind of show it, I think. Got the wrong ones. All right. So, yeah. Let me share this with y'all. So, I'm going to assume what you are asking about is like the structure rather than like technical details about how to draw them. Because I guess I'll add with the final exam, I just post a PDF and you can print it out and write out the answers by hand. You don't have to do any sort of technical like input of code in a computer interface or anything like that. So setting that aside, this is what the syllable structure tree should look like. Basically, each vowel or nucleus will project up to a syllable node. And then after you figure out where the nuclei are for the various syllables, the first thing you do is add onsets. And in this case, America, it's pretty simple because each consonant here just becomes the onset of the syllable or the vowel nucleus that follows it. There are certain cases where you might get more than one consonant in that onset. And the tricky part of this, if we go to like this arthritic example, is you want to grab as many consonants as possible to be in that onset. So like I is a nucleus, a syllable nucleus in this case. You look to the left to see what could go into its onset, and you can get thra because that's an onset that begins words like in three or what have you. But you have to stop there. You can't keep going to the right before it because earth is not a valid onset at the beginning of a word or anywhere else in English. So this becomes the onset. The T here becomes the onset of the following syllable. This guy does not have an onset. Everything else after that has to go in the coda. So that R goes in the coda of that syllable, and this K goes in the coda of this syllable. So that's kind of the basic approach. I've got this other example here from the notes here where like for this particular sequence, TL is not a valid onset in English, so you have to make the syllable break between T and L, but it basically works by the same principles. Here, N and T is where you find the syllable break. So this is the onset, and that has to go in the coda. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Now, my second question for the trees would be, I know onsets are before and then codas are last. So how would we go about defining, for example, I know there were some examples on the homework where like you didn't really have, you had like two onsets and then one coda. So would we just define them as two onsets?
Um, so what do you mean two onsets and one coda? So do you remember which problem
I
you're
guess
thinking?
a better way of phrasing it is, can we have two onsets before a noun?
Well, you can have two consonants in the onset before the nucleus. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I got a question here through the chat. Do we need to put the rhyme? And the short answer to that is no. Some people did that, and we're not going to count off for it. But basically, the nucleus and the coda form the rhyme. Yeah, so if you want to represent that kind of in a level of structure in between the syllable node and this node of onsets, nuclei, and codas, that's okay, but you don't have to. Okay, maybe I'll stop sharing so I can look at all the black boxes. Does anybody have other questions about phonology or anything else?
I have a question. So for the final, we're going to download, I assume it's a Word document,
It's a PDF.
and then it's a PDF.
Yeah, I think I can put it in Word too. Yeah, I think I put in both. Yeah.
Okay, so then, and then once we complete it, we upload that to D2L.
Yes.
And then, so for our trees, is it okay if we hand draw them, take photos, and then put them in the document, or do you want us to just use the tree software?
Any way you get it to me is fine, as long as we can read it. So,
awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you can use the tree drawing software if you'd like to.
Okay.
It's fine. I know that can cause some headaches, so I'm not going to force it. But it can also be helpful, I think, in some cases too. Will you still be dropping our lowest homework grade? Yes, that's a deal. There are a few technical issues with the syntax homework, and I'm still sorting through those. But once I get those taken care of, I will post the grades, I think, probably between 2 and 3 today, and then you'll have your updated grade for the course before the final exam. Can we review a questionnaire where we need to formulate phonological rules using distinctive features? Yeah, we can give that a shot. I guess I will point out, I can't remember if I pointed this out during class or not. I should have, even if I didn't. There's a link in the handouts tab of the course webpage. Here, where you can see the various distinctive feature notations. So maybe, if I dig up one of the practice exercises. Let's see if I can find them. My computer wants too slow. Yeah, so, right. Let's see. Why don't I share this with you? I don't think we did all these when we were working through practice exercises in class. But if you go, this is the phonology set of practice exercises, and these are some rules. I think the ones towards the end we did not do. If you want to pick one, we can try to work through it together.
Sorry, where is this sheet?
Am I not? Sorry, which sheet? So I think I'm sharing the phonology practice exercises. Can you see those?
You're sharing it. Is it in the website?
There's a link to the website, the feature sheet that's in the chat that I just posted for you all. And that's a guide for how to work through these problems. Somebody can make a vote about this. I will answer Ralph's question. So for the final exam, there's a time limit. Yes, it's 3 hours. The time limit, I make a record of when you download or access the page with the final exam on it, and then I have a time record of when you submit your answers. So that is how I know how long it takes you. Yeah, and it used to be 2 hours for the in-class exam, but because of the technical issues of doing this online, you get an extra hour. So you shouldn't have a problem really with time overall. Yeah, why don't we do this one? N goes to M before a B. So I don't know, actually, don't want to do that. I think I'm gonna have to change my sharing here and just do desktop so you can see everything. Yes, there's that. I'll make this smaller. So N goes to M before B. And basically what we need to do here is figure out how to specify N, how to specify what changes when you go from N to M, and then how to specify a B using feature notation. So if we kind of zoom in on this, I think, maybe a little bit closer, maybe you guys can tell me what is an N? What combination of features specifies an N in distinction to everything else on this table? You're welcome to shout it out or type it into chat.
The labial and coronal features?
Yeah, so which one belongs to N?
The coronal.
Okay, so N is coronal. So that's a start. There's a number of things that are coronal, though. So how does N distinguish itself from the rest of them?
Plus anterior.
It's plus anterior. Oops. Caps lock. Okay, that's a start. So some of these coronals are not anterior. What about, how do we distinguish it from the rest? I think at some point we'll get to a reasonable number of alternatives, and then we can kind of winnow them down one by one.
Are we trying to distinguish it from M or all of the other letters?
We want N in distinction from all the other letters here, all the other phonemes.
So would you say that it would be voice laryngeal as well?
Yeah, it's plus voice. So I think at this point we're dealing with voiced anterior coronal things. So hopefully you can see this. So in that case, we got N, we have L. What else do we have? I think we have D. I think we have Z. Do we have anything else? We have eth. We have that. And I think that might be it. Yeah, those are the voiced anterior.
So then plus nasal?
Yeah, plus nasal. Good call. And actually, I will pause us here and say, if we go back to this feature nasal, there are three things which are nasal. So that actually buys us a lot of territory, I guess you could say. And out of those three things which are nasal, N is the only one that's coronal. So we've been saying true things about N, like that it's plus anterior and plus voice, so on and so forth. But we can get to where we need to go by just saying it's coronal and plus nasal. That's the simplest way to describe it. I'm going to leave two blanks there. So that's an N. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for the thumbs up.
Are you trying to make it the simplest you can, or is it okay to put everything?
So ideally, you can. The goal is to make it as simple as possible. If you were to go through here, and Karis is going to hate me for saying this, but if you're going to go through here and say plus voice and plus anterior and everything else that's an N, we're not going to take off for it. But you will make your life simpler as well as your TA's life a lot simpler if you just do the simplest way. And the idea is in phonology, that's how it's represented mentally, that you simplify your representations so that they're as general as possible. So I look for the shortest way out, basically.
Is there a maximum number of features that you want us to put on that rule?
No, there's a minimum number of features I want you to put, which is the smallest number it takes to distinguish that consonant or segment from everything else. And in this case, we can basically do it with two.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We need to make a change. So N changes to M. So what changes, what's the difference between N and M using this feature notation?
The placement like of labial or coronal.
Yeah, so it goes to labial. My caps lock doesn't want to work. That's a little weird, actually. I don't know why that's happening. There we go. I'll say labial, and then like minus round kind of comes along for the ride here. So we can add that. But basically that's the only change, is that coronal is going away and labial is coming into play. That's an M. What's a B? That's the last thing we have to specify here. So B is over here.
A bilabial?
Yeah, a bilabial B. So it's labial to begin with. And now we're dealing with just labial things. So this set of three, these two guys, and then these three over here. So how is B different from the rest of those? This gives us 8 creatures. The P, aspirated P, B, F, the V, M. What else am I forgetting? Oh yeah, the W and the rarely seen voiceless W. So how do we pick B out of all these labial things? What makes it different from the rest? You're welcome to just shout it out or throw it in the chat.
Is it voiced?
It is voiced. Come on. Yeah, so B is plus voice right here. So that is going to eliminate these two guys. It's going to eliminate that. It's going to eliminate that. Now we're down to 4. What about the rest? We got B, we got V, we got M, and we got W. And a lot of these, those 4 will look similar, but not all.
Sorry, what letters do we have left again?
We got the B, we got the V, we got the M and the W.
No.
How is this one at the top special? Somebody threw something. Minus continuant.
If you're saying negative sonorant, then I guess it approves them.
All right, well, that's 2 options. So we got to vote for minus continuant and minus sonorant. So V is plus continuant. W is plus continuant. So those would get knocked out. For sonorant, we have M is plus sonorant and W is plus sonorant. So actually, if we use both of those, I think we get to where we want to go. There's actually kind of more than one way to get there, but minus continuant will knock out these 2, V and W, and then, minus sonorant is what we want. And M is plus sonorant, so that knocks that one out. So at this point, we have 4 features. I don't know if we can actually do any better than that, probably not. But that gives us where we want to go. So this describes an N. This describes what changes from an N to an M. And this describes a B, which is the environment for the change. And that's how you write your feature rule, basically. And I wish I knew how to get rid of these little boxes, but I don't. So let's leave them in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
What we were just doing, was that the phonological distinctive features?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't hear a question there.
I was just trying to figure out what it was called.
Yeah, distinctive features. And you can follow that link if you want the, sorry, it's hard to process a lot of information. So you can follow the link I posted to have that reference while you're working on the exam or while you're studying for the exam. Can you review complementizer phrases and forming them? Yeah, I can give that a shot as well. So let's see. I think, yeah, this is where I want to be. Okay. So there's, I think, at least a couple examples. Yeah. This is from this practice exercises. So the jury believed that the defendant was guilty. So this bit inside this sentence, the embedded sentence here is that the defendant was guilty, or basically the embedded sentence is the defendant was guilty. It gets embedded within the bigger sentence with the complementizer that. So if, yeah, I've got, actually maybe I can do this this way as well. If we go to that, Zoom just throws so much stuff in your face. It's hard to keep it all organized. Go to the tree drawing interface. I'll throw this up here. Hopefully you can see this. So this is the jury believed that the defendant was guilty. So actually, I'm taking my life into my own hands here by doing this. 4 brackets open. Okay, let's say, yeah, you could have something simpler like that. The jury believed him. So this is a complete sentence in its own right, and it's just a tense phrase. That's the way we've been describing whole sentences. And we're going to try to embed another sentence inside this verb phrase, except where we have an NP here, it's going to be a complementizer phrase. So if I go back to where I was a second ago, let's see if I can pull this off. Yeah, I'm going to try to just replace that whole thing with that complementizer phrase. And we'll see if the world blows up. It does not. Okay, so in this case, we replace that NP. Actually, I'll do it that way. No, we'll compare this way. Yeah, so in this case, going back and forth, here we have the NP him, and you could put any other NP in there, like the jury believed the judge or something. In this case, we have the complementizer phrase. So within that complementizer phrase, we have this whole TP, the defendant was guilty. And that TP will look pretty similar to this one, the jury believed him, so on and so forth. And they just get linked with the that here. So instead of an NP complement here, the believed takes a CP complement. And that CP is headed by the complementizer that. And when I say it just in isolation, it sounds like that. But when you say it in the sentence, it's jury believed that the defendant was guilty. So it's that is the complementizer. And that complementizer takes as its complement the whole TP, that embedded sentence. And that just looks like what you do in a basic sentence case. So that's a review. Do you have more questions about how that works? Okay. Is this session being recorded? Yes, I'm trying to record it. Sometimes the audio doesn't work, but yeah, that's the goal. Other questions?
I'm looking at the review checklist. I don't see what are they called? Like transformations, I don't see that on the review list. Is that
yeah
on the final exam where you have to do the movement?
That's a good catch. I will put those back on the final exam review checklist. So last year, we ran out of time. There was a lot going on, and I made that part of syntax optional. But we have more time this semester. So lucky you, you should study transformations. So I will put that back on the review checklist and let people know.
It was very quickly went over in class. Will that reflect how many we have to do in the final exam? Like it's something we've only practiced, I think, like once or twice. Is that like, and can we go over a transformation question, I guess, where there's a question and you have to
yeah, might as well.
Like the deep structure and the other.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
That one's, we've only done it a few times and it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say like the proportion of things on the final, but let's do this. Let's look at this basic one here from those practice exercises, because we did not really spend much time on those in class. That's true. It's something that's more in the notes in the textbook. So this is forming or just a yes/no question. So I think I'm not sharing. Let's try that again. So hopefully you can see all this. So this is forming yes/no question. So for that, you start out what's called like deep structure. This is kind of like the analogy here is with like underlying structure in phonology. You know, we have an underlying N and then it changes to an M on the surface. So here we have a declarative statement underlyingly, and it's going to change into a yes/no question on the surface. And so the reason why is that basically here's our declarative statement: Paul will enjoy the show, but this particular version of it is marked with this plus Q feature. Karis was talking about this with me after the class where I talked about this and said that there are actually some languages which mark this explicitly, and they put like a little question particle at the beginning of a sentence so you know it's a question. We don't do that in English. We just know that there's a question feature there because it winds up becoming a question on the surface. So take a look at the surface structure, compare the two. I'll put that over here. Basically, what happens if we go back and forth between the two is the auxiliary verb moves out of that T slot, and it will go to that C slot that's bearing the plus Q feature in the deep structure. So on the surface, will precedes Paul, and it's will Paul enjoy the show, which is a yes/no question. You can answer yes or no to that. The way something people picked up on in the homework, which unfortunately I didn't talk about in class, is how do we denote that movement? You make that happen in the like syntax tree drawing interface with this sort of notation here. First of all, a little T, a trace gets left behind where will started out from, and then you, with that little arrow to 1 notation, say it goes into the first open node basically in the tree. And I think if I change it to 2, yeah, it goes to where Paul is because that's like the second node. 3, I think it would just go to itself, which would be weird. 4, it goes over there. 5, so on and so forth. So, but we want it to go to 1, and that's how you draw the little arrow to that point. Yeah, so basically there's, well, like I asked in the homework question, there's 3 things you need to worry about. There's the deep structure, which is basically a statement marked with a plus Q feature. The surface structure shows the auxiliary moving, and it links up to that plus Q feature, and then you wind up getting the right order syntactically for the whole question. The highest level here, though, is not a TP, it's a CP, because it has to include that plus Q feature. But that's basically how questions work. I don't know if you want to ask more about specifics.
No, that helps. So even in the deep structure, you need to put that plus Q to indicate that you're transforming it to a question, and then show, like in the next structure, you're showing where that tense then moves.
Yeah, technically, yeah, because it's going to change on the surface. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that there's a +2, but there's no -2, like the C bar has a plus or minus, and the phonological features has plus or minus, but the Q
Yeah,
plus.
I mean, that's a good point. Kind of didn't say that to keep it simple, but I guess you could say just a regular statement like Paul will enjoy the show that doesn't turn into a question would have like -Q. But like this is supposed to be there for sentences regardless, but it just doesn't make a difference in English. In some languages, you will get a complementizer on the surface, even in statements. But yeah, that's a good observation. But it should work in an analogous way to what we see in phonology. So statement, question. All right. Other questions? Yeah. Well, in that case, I think I might call it a day and try to post this video. And you're welcome to send me your Karis questions before Wednesday, but the final will be posted first thing Wednesday morning, and then you'll have until Sunday night to finish it. So I'll guess say any more questions before I say goodbye. All right. Well, I'm going to call it a day. Have a good afternoon, a good finals week, and a good holiday season too. I'll see you on the other side of the final, I suppose. Take care.
Thank you so much for the semester.
Yeah, no problem. See ya.